Yakima County Commissioner Amanda McKinney in the house this morning. And good morning, Amanda.
Good morning. It is so nice to see your cheerful faces.
Yeah, really.
Chirp. Good to see you.
Really.
Thanks for being here.
So let's start out. We're talking about COVID. Start out on the state level. The governor yesterday making an announcement that state employees have to get the vaccine. What do you think?
I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of folks don't have enough time, and I get it. Nobody wants to listen to Inslee ramble on for an hour, but I've been listening to his press conferences for over a year now, and he's been signaling he hasn't tried to hide it. Several weeks ago, going into the summer, in fact, when he removed the economic shutdown, he said, we need to there's no reason why 100% of Washingtonians should not get this vaccine. He said that a couple months ago now.
Right.
So he hasn't tried to hide it. And of course, 2 weeks ago, he said he was looking for every opportunity to force 100% of Washingtonians to get vaccinated. And you think about that. That means our kids. It means our kids. That's what he's saying. All of this is a holdout until we can get to the point where he's going to then say, all right, in order to go to a Washington school, you're going to have to get the COVID vaccine. Yeah. This is the first domino, as far as we can tell. It's pretty obvious. And what I would challenge everyone to think about is, there are a lot of folks I know who have gotten the vaccine. We have friends and family who've done so for their personal reasons, and I have been very clear. I support everyone who wants to get the vaccine and everyone who doesn't. It's a personal choice. I fought really hard to get as much vaccine into our community as possible because we knew, and I'm using air quotes here, that was our ticket out. Not forced vaccines, the choice. The government's role is to provide you the choice whether or not you want to have this layer of protection over yourself from the vaccine. But once it was here in mass quantity, it's game over. We're going back to normal. And we should have seen this coming because it's the idea of the snowflake generation. We now have, it used to be that you had a safe space, someone couldn't say things that would cause you harm or make you upset. And now we have gotten to this very dangerous point where I am now responsible for your personal health. And you get to tell me what to do with my body to make you feel better about yourself. And that's where we're at.
Right.
And I would also challenge people to say, how do you think this would have, imagine the headline, even 10 years ago, president or governor, whomever, 10 years ago, mandates an experimental vaccine. What do you think would have been the outcry? Just 10 years ago, we've been conditioned along the way to the point where over the last year and a half, to be honest, were you surprised? Were you surprised?
No, not at all.
And we've been conditioned to expect it.
Yeah.
And so what do? That's the question. And what we do is we absolutely need to encourage people to use their voices, to be calm and rational, logical. But just like they want to have conversations about promoting the vaccine, we need to have conversations about promoting choice. This is about the choice. And I know that Yakima County, those folks who have received the vaccine, there's a very small percentage of those people who believe that someone else should be forced to take it. Most people believe this is something that shouldn't be mandated. I made my decision. I'm at peace with it, whatever that may be. But I don't expect someone else to do what I want to do. That's not how our great society works. And so I would encourage anyone who's received the vaccine, be vocal in your support for your friends and family who've chosen not to, especially in a work environment. Write letters, talk to the boss, don't kill the messenger. I've always been clear of that, right? If you're working for an employer who is saying, you got to do this, a big deal is the kids. The schools are being forced. There are a lot of schools in Eastern Washington who don't want to have the kids wear masks. But how is he successful? L&I.
Yeah, that's right.
L&I, because as a school, you have to choose. Do you want to be sued by a teacher? Or do you want to be sued by parents, basically? That's where we're at.
Right.
It's a terrible place that these folks in leadership positions have been put in, but it does take courage. We have to have the courage to do what's right for our kids.
That's the key right there. I think there's a lot of shaming right now for people who want to speak out against any kind of mandates. You're popular when you're for the vaccine. You're not popular when you're not for the vaccine.
Boy, do I know how that feels.
Yeah.
Well, but consider who sets the parameters for popularity, right? Rugged individualists don't care if they're popular. We don't live for someone else's approval. We live for our own being able to look ourselves in the mirror and like what we see coming back. And so the whole I really see this, and it's being played that way in the nation to a certain extent, left, right.
Right.
Republicans are being blamed for the the anti-vax.
On a
and all
national
that kind of stuff.
scale,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
largest communities who are not receiving the vaccine on a national scale are BIPOC communities. And
Yes.
for our president to say that you're not smart enough to make the right decision is mind-blowing
A
to
direct
me.
slam, exactly.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
then we're going to force people to take a vaccine. Listen, there are going to be folks who eventually, who knows, we're going to end up with, and we're at Delta, we're going to get Epsilon, we're going to get all, because this is a virus. It's a coronavirus. It's going to be here. We
Yeah.
need to learn to live with it. It is
Yeah.
going to continue to mutate because that's what they do. And what are we going to do? I just challenge everyone to think about what the next logical step is. So it's now we're racing against time to get to what? Having our children wear masks until what? They can be forced to get the vaccine. And then it's going to be, the FDA is going to give it full approval as opposed to emergency approval, right? And so this is how we're going to go. And then it's going to be, well, you know what? Now there's another variant.
Boosters.
And so we still need to wear masks and we still need to socially distance. How many trillions of dollars can we print? I mean, it's going today. Going today, how many trillions of dollars? And this is how we come fully socialized, because it's all about government programs to pay people to stay home and stay safe.
Jeez.
Just listening to a doctor
Say it's not so.
speak to I don't know if it was a school board or whatever, but and he claimed to have all the right credentials, and he was explaining how the coronavirus is a virus that has an animal reservoir, meaning it exists in animals too. Therefore, you can't totally get rid of it because it's maybe walking by you on the dog, so to speak, and that because of that, the idea of wiping it out isn't ever going to happen. So,
What are the vaccination rates across the globe? So are we really, is this like beating, quote, we're going to beat climate change in the state of Washington?
Exactly.
We're not
Well,
going
right
to
here in Yakima,
eradicate
actually.
coronavirus
Yeah,
by
Yakima.
forcing everyone, if we literally put our arms up in the air and said, all right, every single person, infancy all the way till whatever, in Washington state is going to get the vaccine, are we going to eradicate coronavirus? And if everyone in the United States of America, 100% of us, got the vaccine tomorrow, are we going to eradicate?
No.
No, because this is it's a virus.
Yeah.
It's global.
Yeah.
So we need to learn to live with it, because even our best efforts in our community, even if it was something that we had 100% saturation in our state, in our county, in our country, the virus is going to continue to mutate and spread across the globe. We have to learn to live with it.
Well, and we need a little more honesty. What flashes to my mind right now is some old movies where the conditions, the enemy was at the gate and everybody was singing a different song. They didn't trust the people with the truth, right? So they would respond appropriately. When the virus flies through any sort of mask covering, like pouring water through a sieve, and yet we've got this whole national mask thing, right? And we know that the coronavirus is smaller than what our masks are able to hold, and yet we've put all this effort and energy into the wrong thing. It's like it's like when people pass legislation to say they've done something when it doesn't really address the problem. I mean, you're signaling the wrong stuff. It just goes on and on. So
Well, masks in a surgical setting work. And I know a lot of folks who are proponents of masks like to point to that. Well, you wouldn't want to have surgery without a mask.
no, but we're not talking a coronavirus fly in that room either.
And
so.
we're also talking about, and you can ask anyone who's been in a surgical area, what do they do? I mean, how many times do they wash their hands?
The sterility factor is
correct, and it's not a cloth mask, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
so,
right.
have you seen my 8-year-old's mask when he's done with school on a school day?
I'm sure it
It's-
looks like the
It's
soles of his tennis shoes,
disgusting.
right?
It's terrible. It's awful. But again, where does this end? And that we always have to start thinking about, well, what is the next step? So, okay, we're going to force vaccines, and he's going to look for people to have more people, and more people in our state will be forced into, or lose your job. Okay, and where does it end though? Because what happens when we've got 90% saturation, let's say, and we still have COVID, and then what? Well, now we still have to continue to wear masks.
Wow.
When does it end? No one has been able to articulate at what metric do we get to stop
Right. So
worrying
we've-
about what's going to happen to myself, to other people, because and you talk about the masks. I've listened to so many, videos. People send me stuff all the time. And the beauty of it is some of the stuff I look at and I go, okay, I could see that. That makes sense. Okay, maybe not that one. But here's the thing. That is my personal choice to take it in and decide what's best for me. What do I believe? It is not the school board's job to say, I know what's best for your child. You're not making the, quote, right choice. Governor Inslee, as a single individual, is making health decisions for every single person in the state. That should scare people. He's no more expert than I am. Yeah, I was a mortgage banker. Well, he was a poor attorney. So garbage in, garbage out.
No,
Everyone
that's
gets to
right.
determine what's best for them.
That's right. Representative Chris Corey just wrote me. He says the governor's office is buying off state unions. Hours after the mandate was announced, they announced Inslee is reopening bargaining with state unions. So there you go.
Don't be surprised when you read these headlines. If
Yeah.
that surprises you, then
Yeah.
you aren't paying attention.
That's right.
little naive.
You really have to ask anyone. If someone challenges you, just say very calmly, well, what do you think is the end? What's next? So if everyone goes to get the vaccine, then what? What happens?
Well, right now what we have is a vaccine that apparently perhaps might keep you from serious medical effects yourself, but you're just a walking billboard and allegedly passing it on to everybody else through the Delta variant, if that's true or not, but that's what they're saying.
Their
right?
Department of Health is not requesting hospitals ask or take the data for breakthrough cases for hospitalizations.
Why not?
yeah.
Yeah,
Dang
it doesn't help.
Yeah.
That's the point. I thought, why do they continue to do things that undermine their credibility?
it's so
Let's
key.
really understand this.
Yes.
Truly, why would we not want to know? I've done the same thing with requesting antibody testing. Oh, we don't want antibody. It's not good enough. We don't really know. It's expensive. Well, all of this is expensive. The longer this goes on, the more expensive it gets.
Sure.
If we had a true understanding, truly, of how many people have had the vaccine, had COVID, and that goes to the same thing. Our own Department of Health, and for that matter, the Center for Disease Control, does not acknowledge natural immunity. We do not get any credit across our state or the nation for the folks who've actually had COVID. It's like science left the building and we completely have removed what we know as scientific fact.
The natural way for science versus me giving you the shot and me doing it. It's like I can't count on or know or control Mother Nature, so I'm just going to discount her. Sort of, kind of. Look, and again, to be real here, we'd close the border if we were at all serious about any of this stuff.
And I'm not supportive of any more lockdowns, and that is a thing, and you say, okay, well, the border, why wouldn't we? And obviously, I was a huge supporter of having our border wall to begin with, because I agree that we need to be able to track who's coming in, and I always like the idea of improving that system. But at the end of the day, America, we have to, like other countries, have rules for entering our nation. And we have to be able to know, are you someone who's going to be able to provide for yourself? Obviously, there are reasons and there are limited exceptions for people who are truly trying to seek asylum. We all know about that. But we're talking about, over 200,000 people every 40 days are coming across our border. And we don't talk about it. We're always talking about masking, 8-year-olds in Yakima County is what we're talking about. And that's the wrong conversation.
Good point, Amanda. County Commissioner Amanda McKinney.
All right. Well, continuing our conversation with Amanda McKinney, our Yakima County Commissioner, about our COVID numbers and our COVID requirements. County? What's going on with the county? We know that the state is now mandating. What do you think is going to happen here in the county? We've got a new health officer. So give us some
we do.
thoughts.
We've got a new health officer, and our first health board meeting where he will be there, Dr. Barg, is going to be tomorrow morning. And so, this is a good opportunity to say, if you have any kind of concern about what's going on and you would like to have your voice be heard, it is always your right. to send an email to the health district to have that be read for public comment before the meeting. So the meeting is going to be tomorrow evening at 5:30. There's a Zoom link, and they will do it on Facebook Live. But one of the things that I had brought up at the last health board meeting was, trying to have board approval to direct staff to approve back to school plans by any school who made masks voluntary. I do feel very passionately that, like many things and most things, it should be a parent's choice to determine what's best for their child. COVID has not impacted our children, by the grace of God, like
right.
other things. And you know what's more dangerous? The regular flu, cancer, drowning, car accidents. Those things are all significantly statistically higher rate of occurrence in our youth. Those are the things that we need to be concerned about, not COVID for our youth. But if you are a parent who is concerned about it, then by all means, send your child to school. Let them know you expect them to wear your mask. I don't know how that'll go, because I could say again, having a young boy in the house, even getting those underpants on and brushing your teeth sometimes are pretty monumental tasks to ask of them. But it is your right as a parent to ask that. But I do think it should be a choice. So they tabled the motion until we could get some clarity on what the guidelines are as far as the legality of it. And I think a lot of folks always say, well, how is it that we're able to do this? And you, on the break, you brought up a good point, Lance. It all stems from the emergency order.
Right.
And that is why I was pushing back in May, not just to end the economic shutdown, but end the emergency order, because that is the key. And if you think about this, truly, we've given the keys to the kingdom to one person.
We have.
One individual can say, and think about it, it's anything. He can shut down anything he deems to be what he doesn't want. Under the guise of COVID, it can be anything. And look at this. It isn't hard to imagine where it stops, because right now we still have yet another extension on our eviction moratoriums. We've got extended benefits for unemployment. One of the hardest things to hear from are businesses who cannot get good folks to show up for work.
Yeah.
Look at the for hire signs around town.
Everywhere.
Every billboard.
Everywhere. Everywhere. So, boy, what a unique work environment. You've got folks begging, trying to pay top dollar, can't afford to. Inflation has caused food products to go up. So our entertainment industry, our restaurants are having to deal with all this back and forth of what to do with the cost of goods going up and having to try to pay more than they can truly afford to get people to come do the basic jobs that they need help with. And you know who's been there? The friends and family. Those are
That's
the
right.
folks who've helped those businesses
You're right.
survive. And really, I think, I guess we're going back old school in a way. It's about rallying behind your friends and family and your neighbors who really want help and need help, and you're going to show up for them. And that's the way it's going to continue to be.
Yeah.
I'm just so concerned, truly, at just how this continues to be more divisive.
Well,
how could you have anything more divisive than requiring something to...
I noticed that Multnomah County's coming back with its mask requirements. Do you sense that from the governor? Do you sense that mask requirements coming back from Barg, Dr. Barg?
I would not be at all surprised if our local health officer decided that he wanted to do a local mask mandate. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Obviously, I will be there to say no, thank you. It can be voluntary. And the same with Inslee. What I say isn't going to matter, because Governor Inslee is going to be able to have a mask mandate.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
So far, our Washington State Supreme Court has upheld every single challenge.
Yeah.
Not because it's necessarily the right decision, in my opinion, but because they have it always comes down to erring on the side of the greater good. Your personal liberties balanced with the greater good. Well, how far and who gets to decide? We have a very small group of bureaucrats who are deciding what is good for the greater good. And what we do not hear are the very highly educated folks in the medical community who are the dissenting or detracting voices for these mandates, vaccine, mask, or otherwise, and we don't get to hear from them. And that's why people are kind of in a panic, thinking, well, we can't give access. You're going to get canceled off Twitter or Facebook if you even share something that has somewhat of a contradictory tone to what the drumbeat is of the national media.
Yeah.
That doesn't instill confidence that we're getting the right information. So I think it is wholly logical for folks to want to push the brakes, which apparently they're not doing enough on the freeway right now, but let's push the brakes.
Right.
Because this always needs to be a step back so that we can, again, would this have happened 10 years ago? And if we are here now, what precedent are we setting for the future?
Yeah.
I'm reading from the RCW that Representative Chris Corey sent me, and it says after the state of emergency has been declared, the governor may suspend statutes and prohibit any activity that he believes should be prohibited to help preserve and maintain life, health, property, or a public peace. Under an emergency such as this, the governor's paramount duty is to focus on the health and safety of our communities. In addition, the governor is also a large employer, needs to meet the obligation to provide a safe workplace for government employees. The proclamation answers both of those obligations.
So what defines safe?
And define
So-
public peace, because I got a feeling that
Yeah.
we're not going to be heading towards peace under
But
some of these
safe is
conditions.
we have raised the bar to an unreasonable height. Now it is,
agree.
according to our governor, it is his requirement and your employment. If you are an employer, it is your requirement to guarantee safety. Because employers now, if there's an employee who has COVID, they reverse. So now we've gone from innocent till proven guilty. Okay.
Yeah.
And now you are, especially if you're unvaccinated, you are guilty until proven innocent.
Exactly.
And from an employer's perspective, the employment law in Washington state has been completely flip-flopped. If you get COVID, you have the ability to sue your employer. And the employer has to prove that you did not get COVID while at work. How are you going to do that? There's a reason why you're innocent until proven guilty, because we have this threshold. Beyond a reasonable doubt, we need to be able to show that this is the knife, and these are the gloves, and this is the thing, and the fingerprints, and all of those things. And that has left the building. The assumption is that you, as an individual, take no responsibility whatsoever for you. It is somebody else's fault. Somebody gave you COVID, you don't know where, but you're going to, by golly, it's going to be my employer's going to pay for it. Somehow I'm going to have to get reimbursed for this. We cannot raise that level. It is not the public's responsibility to protect each individual from every possible threat. That's not how our society works. You take a brave step out that front door every day, and you have to determine what risks you're willing to take for what rewards and what consequences. And we have removed that.
Have you gotten any pushback on any of this?
Oh, absolutely. Sadly, I would say, obviously there are some folks who believe that I am a threat to public health because I am not saying, go out and get that vaccine. I have also, though.
Well, I'm not hearing that from you. I'm not hearing that from the other commissioners, though, either.
We are three separate individuals with different opinions, which again, I think every time I run into someone who has a different opinion than I, wonderful. That's the point. That's what we need. We can't have groupthink. It is not we don't want to go down that road where everyone has to toe the line and think the same. We need to celebrate our differences. That's what America is all about, is celebrating our differences. And that's why people live here. That's why people die trying to come here, so that they have the right to choose every day what they get to do.
Right on. Amanda McKinney, thanks for coming in this morning. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Keep fighting out there.
Yep, I think, lift each other up. That's the thing. A lot of folks want to know what to do. Lift each other up, have very calm, rational decisions. If you see an opportunity to show support for someone who's decided not to get a vaccine, even if you've chosen to do so, feel free to say, hey, you know what? I support my buddy Joe over here. If he doesn't want to do it, I don't expect him to do it for me.
That's a rare thing that'll be said, but you're right.
But stop judging each other.
Yeah.
Make your decision for yourself,
Yeah.
and then conduct yourself accordingly.
Yeah.
We got to stop beating up, the holier than thou because I did, or the holier than thou because I didn't. We can't have that.
Because you have to think about it. Right now, you agree. You might agree. But what happens 5 years down the road when it's something else and you find yourself on the other side and you don't agree?
Yeah.
So you need to imagine what it's like. There's a reason why we have freedom, and the freedom to choose is important, because one of these days, the day will come when you don't agree.